Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Amigues, your host for the Unabridged MD podcast. Today is one of those days where I'm so excited about life in general and about people that I meet. and so in March, we're recording this in June. Almost 3 months ago, I was at South by Southwest, and I remember being in this group of athletes and social media influencer thinking, what am I doing here? And like everyone around us were absolutely gorgeous. Everyone was beautiful. And I remember I was like, something's up. What am I doing here? And then I think I just went on the dance floor, danced, and here you were. And then we started talking. And I was about to leave when literally you started talking about what you do. And I want you guys to hear what Dr. Tom Fritz do.
Thank you so much. I just do a little connection to the electricity here. Wait a second.
Okay. Just to say the thing is that Dr. Fritz is definitely not a software engineer. He's not in IT. No, this is amazing. Thank you so much. And you're taking this call from Germany, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm not a software engineer. I'm not an IT guy, but I'm still involved in developing a software.
I think you do even better things. So what do you do so we can share? Because it is so cool what you do.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Yeah. So I'm professor at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences. And I have a work group there in the neurology department. And we look at how to optimize the effects of music in rehabilitation. We also bring it towards fitness. So we've created this startup together with the Max Planck Society called Jymmin. So like Jymmin, but also like gym. And this is actually a method that is, it derives from a lot of research that I've done in different regions that I've been integrating. And one of the aspects that I've been investigating is how people achieve musical euphoria in a music ethnological field study. And this has been so inspiring for me that when I came back to Germany, I tried to recreate this in a way where you don't have to put a medical doctor next to the intervention all the time. And so I started having people make music and combining this in a very immediate way with physical exhaustion. So I had them do it with fitness instruments, so with fitness devices, and with which they were controlling music. And this has since then, we've had a lot of investigations into these effects that we are observing, like a decreased pain perception, decreased exhaustion, and really also very systematically experience of a euphoria, like a runner's high, just super efficiently in 10 minutes. Yeah,
I love it. There is so much I want to unpack, because there's, so right, you open your mouth at South by Southwest and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm staying now.
Nice. Thank you so much.
And I'm gonna talk to you for hours. And I remember being like, and we need to talk more.
Go ahead.
So the first thing, I'm a musician. So I play the violin. I haven't touched my violin in 3 years, but I play the violin and it's there on my walls. And I used to play a lot in groups. I love concerts. And it's funny because some people are like, oh, you're partying all of the time. My kids are like, you're partying all of the time. When we are not here. And I was like, yeah, I'm partying, but really it helps me because the moment I listen to music, I move and it feels good. And I'm so interested in, if you talk to musicians that are doing this professionally, they will tell you that they are in the zone. That's when they play the best. It's when they are in the zone. And it's difficult to explain, right?
And you also know that from athletes. So, which may be one of the reasons why we're also working with athletes, because athletes, they also, when they really have to perform well, they want to get in the zone. And
Yeah.
it's really, and we think this is actually the same thing. Yeah. So this ability to achieve personal, maximal performance, but also in a way that feels quite instinctual and like you don't have to think so much about it. You just do it and you're very good at it. And so what I do is also, because I have this work group, a music evoked brain plasticity group in the neurology department. We look at, okay, what's happening there neurologically. And the first time I understood that, I thought, oh, wow, they should teach children that in school.
Explain.
Yeah.
Explain.
So we have two different systems. How we control our muscles. So two different systems of motor control. One, so if you do like repetitive, like 1, 2, if you're counting, it's usually so-called voluntary motor control. So it's very practical. Yeah. You can use it to manipulate things, and you think you're really in control because you can do what you want. But, this is, in perspective, not a very high performance motor system. So for example, if in soccer you want to jump and then, from the back, you want to hit the ball in the air and then it still goes into the goal, you can't do that with voluntary motor control. No way. Yeah. You need something, and it's the second system we have, so-called emotional motor control. And so everyone knows it. For example, because the first time it was discovered is you can't fake a smile because you cannot, through voluntary motor control, innervate the outer lower eye ring muscle. It just doesn't follow your command. If you say, now I want to smile. No, that's not how it goes. It is a resource that you only have access to in very special situations. And when we're talking with each other, for example, what we do with our tone of voice, with our speech melody, try that, when you're not there and someone says, oh, please just pretend to be talking to Dr. Amigues. Please just pretend.
Yeah.
And it's not the same thing. You will try, and then you'll think, oh, you hear the recording and you think, oh, that sounds really fake. Let's try this another like 10, 20, maybe 30 times. And then we cut it together, and then maybe we can, make it sound like as if it's real. Why is that so difficult? Why do you need to be an actor for 30 years to be able to do this? Because it is this extra resource that we only have access to in these authentic situations. And what we think we are doing is, through this combination of music making and physical exertion, I think we have the key to unlocking this emotional motor control. That's how it's called. And this emotional motor control, look alone at the tone of voice. I mean, it controls the pitch, so it's super high resolution. Yeah, it's super extreme high resolution. Only this way you can control the larynx muscles in such a fashion to create these melodies. And then I'm talking 5 minutes, and now there will be a full stop, and there it is. So it's also, it's responsible for these long-term dynamics too. So it's very, very powerful. And that's why also, athletes, they're very interested in working with us. Trainers of athletes are very interested working with us. And in this whole neuroscience of sports community, it seems that our music feedback intervention is all of a sudden becoming a real topic, and that really makes me very happy. Yeah,
you bet. And just because this is a health podcast, it's funny because I use the Olympians to share what's possible in medicine, right? I always tell them, look, if an Olympian can achieve things that look completely inhuman, right? Like it's superhuman, then we can achieve normal, right? Like we can get you back.
But for me, it doesn't matter if it's an athlete who's trying to achieve their
Exactly.
personal best performance, or if you have a stroke patient and
Exactly.
they're down on the ground, and everything they
Yep.
can do is with their, with
Mhm.
their affected hand. Is this, then I want to give them a chance to play a rock and roll with this, and so they can really try to get beyond their limits just doing this thing. And for me, this is also, everyone is like an athlete then,
Yes,
if you
I agree.
really try. And
I agree.
and we see so many positive effects when we're
But
working
so
with patients.
in practice, okay, so again, I have so much that I would like to unpack, but in practice, first, let's talk about how it looks. So let's say you have a stroke patient or you have an athlete. Like what do you do? Like how do you, because I'm assuming this is still in the research, we're going to see more of this. How can someone, like, how can they work with this? And what does that look like?
So, I mean, we're really now beginning to bring this out together with other companies, mostly in cooperation. So, let's say, and so the worst case type of scenario, type of patient. So, for example, someone who has had to lay flat for a long time, and they're being put upright, with a mobilization chair. We have now this cooperation with a company called Rehab and Medi, and they are building these robotic chairs that are also becoming available now in the US. By the way, there's a device in the US that's currently tested at the Texas Medical Center it's called, and then it'll go to Florida. But anyway, so when they're being put upright, also their arousal increases. And what we usually want to do is we want to have a correspondence of the arousal that people experience through working out, for example. And they increase their arousal and the arousal that's happening in the music, because then what we see is people very strongly identify with what's happening in the music, very strongly emotionally identify. And for example, in chronic pain patients, this directly leads to a decreased perception of pain intensity.
So you're putting some music that you choose. So how does that look? So you have that chair that's like putting patient upright, and after they have been like lying down for so long, and you're putting a music with it.
So now with this device, it's that people are laying in the machine, and the more they are being put upright, and the more, their cardiac system is challenged, the more intense the arousal of the music gets. So,
so can you, I don't know if you're like, can you sing it?
Yeah, okay. So for example, you have something very relaxed when you're laying down, like
Got it.
And you're being put upright slowly, and the music gets more intense. For example, more a guitar comes in,
and then there's the drop.
And then the drum comes in, and when they're standing upright, maybe it's, it could be like a heavy metal music piece. And I mean, depending also what kind of music they like, it could be like a classical, it could be anything. Also, that's beautiful. So depending on the taste. But then, people are being put upright, and usually they would think, I feel really challenged in my cardiac cycle. I think I'm panicking. And now they're saying, this feels great. I'm the hero of my own story, because music can do that. Music can do that.
This is so good. This is so good. And it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. Like the number of times you start singing after a long hike, because you're like, I'm so done with this. And you start singing so that the hike doesn't seem as painful. That's like so good. How do you study? How are you able to study this? Like, do you test some sort of markers? Do you test are you able to study this in such a data-driven way?
I mean, there are many, many ways how we address this. So we have these 15 or so scientific publications out about these interactions effects of this music making and this exertion. So, but for example, for me, neuroscience is most beautiful when it really leads to behavioral change. Yeah.
Yes.
So one thing, for example, that, you can measure is pain threshold, for example. Yeah. So this is, and we see, so people get less pain sensitive during acute pain, but also during chronic pain, when they do these types of interventions. But also, so we've been looking at, for example, exertion experience. So how much, exhaustion do people feel? And there are, there's been a lot of thought that has gone into these questionnaires to actually very precisely assess these types of, more subjective psychological phenomenon. And so we see that perceived exertion goes down massively. Or also like euphoria, you can also assess this with questionnaires. We see that this reliably goes up. But then, interestingly, we also see that a number of parameters that relate to cognitive functioning, they massively increase. So, and my theory about it is that if you have these properties, if you have this activated emotional motor control and these enhanced properties of temporal resolution, but also these long-term resolution of, like these dramatical dynamics control, if you have that more available, not only, for your physical movement, but also for your thought processes, because, the brain doesn't really differentiate between sequences of body movements and sequences of other types of events. Yeah. So if you can, it's just what's the effect of it. Yeah. If you're moving, you're moving. Yeah. But if you're using the same kind of properties for the sequences and referencing of your thoughts, this will have an effect on cognitive capability too. And for example, we've been using this also with people with Alzheimer's disease, and we see that after 1 week of training, then on a day afterwards where they're not training at all, they still retain a benefit of having this Jymmin intervention, for example. So they have this improved short-term memory. They're more, they're more, you can see that they're just have higher levels of vitality, and it also, they also just feel better. What we always see is also that this decreases level of anxiety, for example.
Yeah.
So, for example, these chronic pain patients, they usually have a high level of anxiety, which also plays this detrimental role when in this vicious cycle developing chronic pain. But, when you can create music with it, something happens that, decreases also your anxiety levels, which is, so beneficial for so many illnesses.
And you choose the tracks though, right? So it's not any music. It's a track that's more relaxing, maybe at first.
So there's there's very, very interesting effects there. For example, we see that. We usually try to choose an interactive composition. So it's like. We've built up with the Jymmin company this. So it's a music feedback software, but it's associated with an archive, a library of interactive music pieces that you can play. And there's from every type of, taste, you can choose something. Yeah. And usually we try to choose something that, people like, yeah, or we have them choose themselves, what kind of music would you like? And then they just choose it themselves. But we also see a very, very interesting effect because we see the same thing that's happening when people really play in a band. And that's why we call it the band effect. So when people are in control of the music themselves,
Yeah.
they usually, have a so-called positivity bias about it, such that they would always think that was really nice music. And the trick with it is really something that relates back to the 70s. A guy who first was able to explain how brainwashing works, Robert Cialdini, a psychologist, and it's all about so-called commitment. Yeah, so you commit a lot of physical effort in it, and then afterwards people they will very reliably think, yeah, that was because the music was so good. Yeah. Yeah. So
And how do you make interactive? Because I'm just like, are they become DJ? What's the story? Like, how do they become? I'm imagining someone running, for example. How do they make their music interactive?
yeah, I mean, the simple scenario is you're in charge of the whole music, yeah, and you're doing a little, the music has low arousal, you're doing a little more, the music comes
Oh,
in
so it's
more and
depending
more.
on your heart rate.
It depends on your physical exertion, or
Okay.
your basically always your even how much you try. It just needs to precisely map to how much you try.
But how does it do that? Like, how does the app work? I guess, how does it
So
work?
so you can do this in many, many different ways. You can do physiological tracking. So I use it with
Wow.
my Apple Watch, for example. Yeah.
Nice.
But
Okay.
also, you can do it, just by monitoring amount of movements, for example. So running speed, cycling speed, and then the next level is then to have it more interactive, such that you play something and I play something and we play together. And only together it becomes, the band, and maybe someone else joins in with a flute solo while I play the guitars and you play the drums and bass. Yeah.
While exercising. I mean, I don't think I
Yeah.
can.
Through the exercising. And
Yeah.
it's, and you really have to try this out. It's not until you realize, well, if you think, oh, wow, this must be strange, but it doesn't feel strange at all. It feels like
Yeah.
the most natural things, like once you've done it this way, you just realize how boring it is not doing it this way. So let me tell you, for example, like these typical effects of
Yes.
music that you have when you're running with music, it's just an illusion.
What do
And
you
we,
mean?
so like when you're watching a movie, you know that this is fake and you
Yeah.
still want to indulge in the illusion that you're participating in this emotional,
Yeah.
dynamics, this story, and and the same thing is happening when you're running with music. So, why is it that you want to synchronize to when it goes boom in the music? Yeah. So it goes boom, boom, and you like to put your feet down when it goes boom. Why is that? Because it's a bit stupid. Yeah. But that's sometimes how our
I
brain
don't think it's
works.
stupid. I think it's great.
So it allows you to indulge in the illusion that you have this extreme self-efficacy in the world where you step down, it goes really boom. Yeah. But what we do is we really give you the this self-efficacy to change the music due to your exertion, and that feels so natural. That's why this I told you at the beginning, this started off also as a music ethnological field research where I was trying to understand the principles of how to achieve musical euphoria, like musical ecstasy. Like we would imagine that in our dreams. It really exists. There are people out there who still do this. Yeah. And it works. And they're not giving up on this because, this just is something that works extremely well.
Explain. explain, right? Because you started with like, I'm trying to achieve music euphoria. What does that look like?
So when they
For
do
some
it, for
people,
example,
and they don't know.
so the Mafa that I visited, they play these long flutes. So I mean, between this and this size, and they have different pitches, according to the size, and they're extremely hard to play. So in order to get a sound out of it, you need to do something like. So it's quite extreme. It's like a control type of
Oh my
ventilation,
God.
and then they're running in circles. It's extreme physical exertion, and but they also, you can see that creates, perceived euphoria. I mean, very efficiently. And when that was, one of the reasons where I thought, oh, I wonder if it's the breathing or if it's this physical exertion component. And when I came back, I began to investigate it from the side of physical exertion, because I thought, okay, well, if I do the breathing thing, that's going to be tricky. And, I need someone with a plastic bag, a doctor next to it all the time. And, I'm not sure how I'm going to explain that to the ethics commission, but, having it in a way where it's very controlled and people understand that because they're doing this, and it, relates to culture already, it's like it's now like an enhanced version of this, just that you can really tap into such musical euphoria. And this will also, through the emotional motor control, have such a benefit for you during the workout. And we also think that this different pattern of activating your arousal system, because you're not like 1, 2, 3, but you're doing like, oh yes, that's exactly how I feel, that this type of activity will also, be very healthy on a immunological level, because we know that using your muscles relates to immunology, and these are, these are centers where these, these agents are being produced, but, and when you're using it, you set them free and they become available to you. But, if, these muscles, if this dynamics control, it relates to authenticity and it relates to, really emotionality during the movement, then, my bet is that yes, of course, if you involve more of this, expression, identification, that's exactly how I feel like, then you will also get different patterns of immunological response from this that are more beneficial to health and to longevity. Yeah.
I love that. And so since I have a lot of patients with pain, there's a lot of chronic pain in my world of rheumatology, and we have amazing treatments, but sometimes, osteoarthritis, there's not that much treatment options. What would you recommend? And can we even get your app? It sounds like an awesome app. Or is it just in Germany and only for the super athletes? Is it going to be considered like like they are doping themselves?
maybe, yeah. But in contests, in some of the really big contests, listening to music is not even allowed, because music can be considered, in some contests, it is considered as a type of doping anyway.
Wow.
So yeah. Oh. So yes, I mean we have been applying this in different ways. So for example, we've also been creating an MVP with ergometers. That's actually very nice. So like clinical ergometers, and you can either do it with the hand or with the feet. It's very nice. Yeah. Like it was the first thing that clinic said is they said, we just want to put someone somewhere on a machine, and such that our therapists, they don't have to animate them all the time to go faster or so. And that's what we see is, that's been the initial driving factor for working with clinics, because they see, oh, you know what? we can put people to this music feedback ergometer, and they're just happy doing this. And we don't, and then it becomes less work for the therapists. And I think that's what you have to deliver also as a product. That it's something that people have actually less work than before.
And so where do you
nice.
find that? Where can I get that?
Yeah,
I want that app now.
I mean, we have this now. So you can get already this. Get 3 products at the moment.
That's extreme.
So the machine is a little bit extreme. It's also a little bit expensive, but
I think most of my
cool.
patients can't stand straight.
then the ergometer we have in a testing phase.
Okay.
And we have it also with different companies in the testing phase. So I think this will be available soon.
Okay.
Yeah. And then finally we have something that's for facial muscle training. So something for patients relatively, like either, people after stroke or neurodegeneration, or also developing Parkinson's also. People who would else develop a so-called stone face. And now we have this, and that's actually pretty cool. So they can control the music with their facial expressions. And that you can already have. That's no problem. We have an app. You could work with that starting tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, you send it to us, and then we'll share that.
I'll be happy to do that. So this is actually quite a trip, I have to say. So, for example, if you can control it with your smile, then it's just these Parkinson's patients, they, when they're developing this stone face, I mean, one of the interventions that they have to do these, facial muscle trainings every day. And, they're usually advised to do this for 3/4 of an hour. So who wants to do this? No one, and there's just 2 or 3% actually of these Parkinson's patients do it. But if you can combine it with something where you just forget that you're doing it and you're just listening to the music and how you can control it, it's actually pretty nice intervention that, it's cool. It's a lot of fun even, yeah.
It's really, really cool. So it's really interesting because, I have been in medicine for over 20 years now. When I started learning about neuroplasticity actually well into medical school, right? Like in the sense of at first, it's like, if you lose it, that's it, it's done, right? And then it was like, well, actually, we're learning that there is something called neuroplasticity. And I remember when I did my second training at Columbia University, I had a stroke patient because of vasculitis, so inflammation in the brain. And I remember telling him, I was like, you've got to imagine you're moving your arm. You're going to imagine that you're moving your leg so that you reconnect all of this. But it's like you're at a level that's even higher where we are making you do this without you realizing it.
You have all these, mental imagery effects with this too.
Yeah.
But it's just that you think, oh, now, I want to be here after a stroke, and you think, because here it sounds so good. Oh yeah, I can really identify with this. And that changes a lot with this respect to motor control, because also, it seems that this emotional motor control, it appears to be quite resilient, to neurodegeneration. But that's also partly because if you have a stroke, for example, in emotional motor control, it affects your heartbeat, it affects your breathing. People often die, 95% of the time people die. But that also means if you're a stroke survivor, you most probably have a very intact emotional motor control system. And when you think about it, as children, they are born, babies are born with a very nice, intact emotional motor control system. They can produce this smile and you think, wow, you're probably using 1,000 muscles there. How do you do that? Yeah, you just came out of the womb. And while, learning to speak a word, it'll take these 3-4 years, because that you also need this voluntary motor control for this. So the working hypothesis that we have is that, you come to the world with this repertoire for emotional motor control and this voluntary motor control that you have to learn. It's basically, it's on the shoulders of this emotional motor control. And that later in life, when you again lose the capability for voluntary motor control, it's a very natural thing to learn it on the shoulders of emotional motor control, which may also be one of the reasons why this, in stroke patients, this singing interventions, they work so well. And people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That you
So
can.
you ask people to sing?
Yeah, if people, there's this therapy where people, they can sing the words, but they cannot speak the words.
Oh, yes. I've read that, yes.
Yeah, and that may be the same reason, because it's emotional motor control to a stronger degree involved during the singing, which was also one of the ways how we, for example, investigate emotional motor control, the neural signatures of that. So we've published about that with looking at pupillometry, and now also looking at EEG, was just accepted like a few days ago. And so we look at it, looking at behavioral, capabilities, how do they increase? But also, of course, we're looking for these neural signatures to then be sure, okay, can we actually quantify that? Or maybe, it's one of my dreams one day, help people, lead them out of their coma through music feedback. But that's,
I was literally going to ask you that. I was going to ask you if you're like, what is your dream in this field in the next, I don't know, we don't even have time, because anyway, time is a construct, right? So let's say every money was put in this and there was no limitation of time or people or money. What would you want to see?
I would want to bring this to everyone. Of course, I also have this, I'm already testing this out with BCI, and people only, controlling the music with their thoughts, and I hope to, that's how I would like to stimulate people with, with consciousness, decline. But, I think the most important thing is to bring this out into the world, make this part of people's routines. And that's also at the moment how we try to proliferate this. So we have this music feedback software, and we have this associated interactive music library, and we want to make this available to people. Like with these two cooperations with these companies, these were largely people who had approached me, or we met somewhere and they said, oh, I would like to enhance my product with this. Can I do that? And that's actually what we would like to offer anyone who has a product out there and they want to enhance their product with our Max Planck music feedback technology. Please do reach out and contact me, and we'll be trying to make that happen.
I love it. Wow, that I knew this would be amazing, because I remember I was like, I want to stay longer and I want to bubble, Tom.
Thank you so much.
I want to learn so much, and I feel like I could learn so much from you.
Likewise.
It's such a pleasure. It's just so cool what you do. I just love it so much.
Thank you so much. It always takes a team. Of course, I'm working together with great people who help me make this a reality,
But your passion comes through. And I'm pretty sure the reason you were on the dance floor with us at that time was like, oh, here are people who are moving and listening to music.
Hey.
Bam.
Hey, that people who understand that, they also understand something important in life, and life is too short anyway. So
I know, right? That's exactly it. But I just love it. And I cannot wait to see this implemented in more area of life. I think that, music is so healing. It's incredibly healing. And now you're talking about a next level of like changing it, enhancing. I mean, this is incredible. So So excited for what's
Thank you so much,
to
Isabel.
come. Yeah, thank you so much. Tom, thank you again so much. We will put where to find you so that we follow you. Everyone follow Tom on LinkedIn. First of all, he's super fun, and also it's incredible what you do. And you are I'm not very active on LinkedIn, but you are active on LinkedIn, so you can follow. And thank you so much. And then we'll bring you back to the Unabridged
thank you
MD
so
podcast.
much. Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
Also, thank you so much for your engagement to try to amplify certain things in the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's so, you know, it's necessary. That's not only, you know, the people who can bang the very big drums with a lot of money get all the you know, they get all the attention, but it's also sometimes, you know, people trying to do beautiful things, smaller things that could have an impact. Thank you so much also for this, you know, for being curious about this and for your enthusiasm.
Thank you so much. And everyone, we'll see you next week, and I'll share this one with your friends. This is incredible.
Thanks for having me.
Share this to all my whole family.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Bye-bye, Isabel. Bye-bye.